I wish I could play background music, but I don't want YouTube. I don't want YouTube to flag the video. I'll have to figure out. I do have some loyalty-free backing tracks. I don't know. Would be nice to have in the background, but I guess I'm gonna prep the next book. It's gonna go in the press, and then we'll see how it goes from there. Oh, that's not unboxing. Here we are. Perfect. And then we'll turn the volume off on my computer just in case. So basically, I got over a short box of Silver Age Marvel books, and they're all in the sort of low to mid grade. Sorry, low to mid grade. So I just need a little basic cleaning and pressing to get them back into shape. So I've been slowly working my way through them. It's going to take me a long time because I have a lot of customer books that I need to work on as well. So I only do these when I've got time between my other customer books, but I try to knock them out a couple of times. As you can see, it's your standard like dirt on the spine, on the back, a little bit of waviness here in the covers. It's hard to see. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. A little waviness in the covers, a little bit of cover dirt. So if anybody joins in and has any questions, you know, you can shoot them out in chat, and I'll do what I can to answer them. But basically, these are not high grade books. We're not doing like deep cleaning and pressing on these. We're just trying to, you know, clean them up as best we can, and so that they're going to present well, so that we can obviously maximize our return on them. And in a case like this, I always take a look at a book and I get a feel for like how strong is the paper, how does the gloss feel, how much cleaning can the book handle. Some books you have to be really careful about, about how much cleaning and pressing prep work that you do on them. Oh, here, I'll put my hat on backwards so it's out of my way when I'm looking over the book. But really, for stuff like this, I'm just looking in the whites for now and looking for areas where there's, surface dirt. I like to start, it depends where in the book I'm working on. If I'm working in areas like this, I like to use a 2mm eraser. This is I don't even know what this is. It's not a Tombow, but it's got like a 2mm angled eraser head. And I just like to get in there with that and just get that surface material out of there. If you're wondering why I'm not wearing gloves, I do not like to wear gloves when I work on books unless they're super glossy, or sometimes if they're super brittle. I like to feel the paper. I like to be able to feel the difference in the cover between, where stuff is stuck and stuff isn't. And I just clean my hands basically first, okay? So if you clean your hands, you don't have to worry about oil and dirt transfer, all that kind of stuff, right? So we're just going for cleaning up obvious signs where dirt is collecting in here. I do have several different sizes of erasers that we use, depending on what area of the book I'm working on. Normally, I don't start with a small eraser. I usually start with my regular, just like a regular one. This is a piece of it, but like a regular gum eraser. And then I do the broad areas of the book first. But because this particular book obviously is mostly, is mostly action with white scattered in between, then I'm starting with the smaller one on that. And again, this is like I say, this is probably going to be a mid-grade book when it's done. So you sort of balance off like how much work you're going to do, to the potential the potential the book can reach. And that's just something you learn after doing thousands of books. You get a good feel for before you even start it, how far a book can come along, how good it can become, and how much work it's going to take to do that. And there are sometimes when there's like a technical problem with the book, I don't know, tears, staples, staple issues, stains, things like that, where you almost get locked in with the maximum potential grade. And if you're going to spend a whole lot of extra time on something else, you might not be increasing the grade of the book at all. Yes, you could be increasing the curb appeal of that book, but the grade's not increasing. So just something to consider when you clean and press for return or clean and press for a business. You have to balance the time versus your return, right? And you might look at a book and be like, well, that book's not even worth like cleaning and pressing, because the value increase of the book isn't going to balance off with the work that you're going to do. Now, another thing that I like to do when I'm using my erasers, I usually like to start with the biggest eraser first in the biggest white areas, and I work my way close to the detail, okay? And then as I get closer to the detail, I lighten up on any pressure, and I won't actually go right up against some other color section that might be in there. Then what I do is I'll switch out to a super fine eraser like a Mono Zero. Here you can see that Mono Zero is like a 1mm eraser, and you can use that to get in between all this stuff. As far as eraser technique goes, some guys will tell you, only go one way, only go the other. It really depends where in the book you are. If you get close to the edge, you want to work away towards the edge to prevent potential tearing, and see how that goes. What was I saying? Yeah, eraser directions. A lot of guys will talk and say you can only erase in a certain direction. You can only go this way. You can only go that way. Don't go back and forth. Only go one direction. Not the band, the eraser. I think you have to look at a book and decide. When I'm working in by detail, either I'm going to start by the detail and move away from it and always go that direction, or I might follow it. It's just, you have to get a feel for what works for you. Sometimes I'll do little circles or patterns. It just doesn't really matter. There's no right choice, okay? Whatever works for you, you should go with, and practice will tell you what works for you. All I can say is, as you get closer to the edges of the books, you want to move towards the edge so that you don't damage any paper. Or if you are working sideways adjacent to an edge, because you have to, because of the way a certain dirt is, you want to go on an angle. And I'll show you that when I get into my larger eraser. I'll show you what I mean about that. And if you have a book that has like some spots of dirt and not others, I mean, you don't need to be doing the whole thing. Like if you can remove that dirt and not leave surface marks on the book in the finish, then like, why are you cleaning an area that's already clean? Now, sometimes you need to feather out if you clean in an area. You need to feather away from where you cleaned, or you have to do the whole thing, because it'll look weird, especially if it's a more persistent type of dirt. Now, as far as pressure goes, I'm not applying much pressure. Really, it's just enough you can feel the eraser sort of with a little bit of resistance on the paper, and pretty much that's it. That's all that's going on here, okay? And once I get the inside kind of where I want it, I look for little tiny spots. So there's a little bit of dirt here underneath this speech bubble. So I'm going to come in here with my mono eraser and just kind of lessen that off. And sometimes you can't eliminate a mark 100%. Okay. Sometimes what you're doing is just trying to make it so it doesn't stand out as much. So it looks a little more natural, right? The other thing that I like to do is, after I clean an area, I like to take this is a little square of absorbing sponge. I like to take this and just kind of rub it lightly over the area, and that'll help with any sort of hazing that maybe the eraser left behind. And also, depending on the finish, you can use a pad and you can polish the book afterwards as well. Whatever works. Now, like I was saying, when you work close to the edge with a larger eraser, which I'm going to show you guys. So this is the piece that I'm working with. Obviously, this is just a piece of an eraser. It started off being a regular gum eraser. If I'm going to clean this spot next to the edge, I'm not going to go back and forth right on the edge. I'm going to kind of come down on an angle off the edge of the paper, okay? Like this. And I'm not doing it super hard because the edges can be brittle. And the other thing too is you're better off to lightly go over a spot for a longer period of time at lower pressure than to get right in there and be like, I can scrub this, I can scrub this thing off and I can make it look perfect, because all you're going to do is lose pieces of the edge. And then I can go in and just hit little spots. It's hard to see up here. I'm going to show you guys. This is a case where I'm going to come down at an angle across the edge. There's actually it looks like a little, it's not a tear, but you can see the paper right up here has a little pock mark where there's been like a surface tear. That's a case here. We have to be careful around that, because if we came right across that with the eraser, you could open that tear up and then tear right through the paper. And you'll notice that when I work the corner, I'm going to keep my finger on that section of the paper here to keep the paper tight and supported as I go towards that, especially towards that corner, okay? Again, no right or wrong answers. Whatever works for you is the right thing. And then there's some surface dirt here in the top, so I'm going to come across sideways, but I'm coming down on a slight angle. It might be hard to see, but I'm coming down at a slight angle, so I'm not going straight along the edge of the paper. And I'm just going to keep the paper nice and tight with my two fingers like this, and come along. And then I'm going to get as much of that off with the big eraser as I can. And then I'm going to come back with this one, and I'm just going to come along the edge of that purple. And I'm just going to even that out, take off whatever else is left behind. Just like that. And that's much better now. Some guys you'll see brushing off a book with like a soft paintbrush to get the eraser shavings off. You really have to determine the quality of the paper. And a book like this is completely unnecessary, but if you had a really brittle, dry pages book, yeah, you'd want to be careful with everything. How you're handling it, how you're clearing it, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so the front's looking good. So now the back. Now, on these old books, the backs are always the worst part. You can see all this accumulation. This is sort of standard kind of stuff that always happens heavily along the spine. My erasers have like a wear mark grooved on them, and I do that specifically so I can come right along the edge of that spine, and I can rub that eraser right on the edge of the spine, and it has a little rounded spot on it, and it's perfect for getting that done. And I just work my way down the spine edge first, all the way down, being careful when I get to the staples on these square bounds, because the staples are already, there's one little spot here where the staples actually just pushing through the paper, and if I came across the top of that too hard, it's just going to widen that hole where that staple's coming through. And again, I move towards the edge, making sure that I'm not catching any extra paper or anything. Now, When it comes to doing this underside here, because I'm going to clean where those staples are, I don't want to push any of that staple, more of that staple through here. So if I see if I can show you guys, that staple right there, the edge has just got a little tiny wear hole through the paper. We don't want to make that any worse than it is, so I'm going to take a sheet of 20-pound paper, and I'm just going to put it under there. So that way when I come back and I clean this, when I clean this spine, then I'm not going to be making that hole worse. Now, this is a case where at the edge of the paper, I go towards the paper, but in this open area, I am going to use like a swirly pattern or a back and forth. Sometimes the dirt comes off and it has a preferred way of moving the eraser to clean all that off. And I'm just going for the stuff in the big areas first. And I'll come back with my small eraser and I will hit those areas between. I'll hit them after and tidy them up. But I'm just going for big area first. I want to get most of this gunk off of this area. And then we'll go from there. I like to, especially in these backs with all these whites, I like to do all the white areas first and get all those, the biggest areas cleaned up. And then I'll go back with my smaller erasers and do the parts in between. And as you can see, it's not an exciting job doing this part, but this is the necessary prep work that needs to be done because you have to do your dry cleaning and everything before humidification and before the cleaning and pressing. It's important to do your dry cleaning before the humidification because wet paper is weak paper, right? So if you get the paper damp, you really can't work on it. You can do hand tooling for like indents and stuff like that, but you certainly wouldn't want to be trying to do cleaning on wet paper. It's just you're just gonna shred it. All right. So this bottom section is looking good. Clear all that out of there, and then I just rotate the book around and I just keep going. All right, so again, being careful with the edges, making sure we don't cause any extra tears. And getting all that excess stuff off. Now this book is nice because most of the stuff that's on this book is just your regular Joe Blow surface dirt. There's not a lot of like staining or anything like that. There's some little tiny spots of staining, but not very much. So the paper obviously is going to be a little bit yellowed from age, which is just normal for paper that's this old. And that's what we would expect to see. But it's still pretty good. It's held up pretty well. And then once we got this done, then the easy part, we put it in my humidification chamber, let it humidify, and then we press it, and it'll look gorgeous. Okay, one more section of more open white space, and then we can hit those spaces in between with a smaller eraser. I'll probably do a, when I post this video on YouTube, I'll do a time lapse or something on the cleaning part so that when people rewatch it, then it won't be so tedious, because that's the big part of cleaning and pressing, is just doing the work, right? Taking the time. Oh, I also have, oh, maybe my kids have taken my other one. I do have a 4mm eraser too, which I use quite often, although I think my kids have borrowed it, so I guess we're keeping with the 2mm for now. But now we'll just use the 2mm, and I'm going to lightly go into the areas like down in here in the mailing box, where you can go in between the lines with the 2mm and just take some of that excess surface dirt, because I don't know why, but surface dirt always collects down here between these spots. I don't know if it's because of the ink creates a slightly raised area which traps debris. I don't know, but let's get down in there, clean these spots in here, clean these spots in here. And you get a feel for this once you've done this, a few thousand times. You can get a feel for what eraser will fit into what space, how much pressure you need for different types of dirt, what kind of stuff you really can't get off with standard eraser. And you have to make a decision, like, what am I going to do with that? Do I just leave it? Do I mitigate it? Sometimes doing work on certain types of flaws make them worse, and you're better off to leave them be. And that only comes with experience, right? After you've worked on something enough times, you get an idea of what can and can't be done. So now we're going to try to clean some of this dirt that's right over top of the staples, because the staples is the high spot, so the dirt always collects. Now remember, I've got a piece of heavyweight paper behind this to protect the holes so they don't get whiter. And we're just trying to get some of that surface dirt off of where the staples were originally pressing up against it, and going from there. So now it's looking pretty good. Just about ready to go into our humidity chamber. We'll give it a little wipe down with our absorbing sponge. Make sure that everything here is good. The other thing that we're going to do before it goes into our chamber is we're going to take a microfiber cloth and just wipe it off, just because we don't want any residue on the book to then get stuck to the book in the chamber and then get pressed in.